Howdy. How's everybody doing? Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, everybody. It's Rod with Powell Group. Today is Thursday, June 13th, and it's High Tide Earnings Day today. So we're going to discuss their Q2 2024 earnings. I just started to review it. They just came out, so we'll go through it together and thought it'd be a great idea for a live stream. So we'll get started here in about 30 seconds or so. We'll give it another 30 seconds, half a minute for people to join us. Before we get started, though, make sure to smash the like, share the video with your network if anybody can jump on last minute, and we'll get started here momentarily. I see we have quite a few people joining the live stream. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started here in about 15 seconds. Let us know where you're tuning in from as you join the live stream. All right, tons of people jumping on now. So welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, everybody. It's Rod with Powell Group. It's Thursday, June 13th, and it's High Tide Earnings Day. So we're going to review their earnings that just came out after markets close. And as a reminder, they do have their conference call tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time as well. So we'll jump into the review. Before we get started, though, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. And as always, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. You should never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. So we'll go through the Q2 2024 earnings. And they did have a miss. Spoiler alert, they did miss in terms of revenue. I mentioned this in my earnings prep video that this could be the quarter where they finally start to miss because the analyst estimates were lower than the previous analyst estimate. And we started to see, it's going to wane eventually, right? But nothing to be worried about. Overall, great earnings. They did beat in terms of EPS, though. So that was great to see. But overall, a fantastic report from one of the MJ industry's best companies. So excited to be a high tide investor. Full transparency, I do own the stock, and I am working on getting an interview with Raj Grover as well, the CEO. So hopefully we can get him on at some point. He said he was busy, obviously, with earnings and everything coming up. So we're going to hopefully reach out to the communication team and get something lined up for the next month or so. But ideally, hopefully get something in the next month or so. Also, you can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So Raj did share this snippet. So Q2 2024, 9.4 million in record free cash flow, 22.7 million free cash flow in the past 4 quarters, trailing free cash flow yield of over 8%. They achieved positive net income, highest MJ revenue of any Canadian MJ company, and surpassed 500 million in 12 months trailing revenue. Positive adjusted EBITDA for 17 consecutive quarters, 52% year-over-year growth, adjusted EBITDA margin of 8.1%, up 45% year-over-year. They had annualized retail sales represented over 1,500 per square foot across the Canna Cabana store network. And that's pretty much where I shop for all of my I go to Value Buds the odd time, but pretty much all of my money is spent at Canna Cabana. 172 stores. They continue to roll out their stores in Ontario. We know that they doubled the retail store count from 75 to 150. So that's something that we could potentially see a little bit. Could hurt the numbers a little bit over the near term, but overall, it's going to be a positive thing. And then they continue to expand in their own home province here in Alberta, and then BC, and then looking at Atlantic Canada, and Germany set to fast track Pillar 2, which will be for profit, and huge beneficiary there will be High Tide. So exciting times ahead, and then we can tackle the U.S. market, right? And even High Tide has said that they may look to buy a producer and become a producer at one point. But I did mention this in my previous video that, if they do end up becoming a producer, they're probably holding out for maybe an improvement to excise taxes. But by then, if they're waiting that long, then a lot of the other producers are going to have a huge head start. And then if they do end up becoming a producer later on, once excise tax improve, they're probably going to have to pay a big premium if that's the case, right? Because the landscape would have changed. So I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I don't think that they're going to necessarily become a producer. But as the poll that I put out said, I put out a poll on X. I'll just go to it here real quick, actually, and then we'll jump back into the earnings. but I did post on here my list. So I made a couple videos of top MJ companies and which ones have the most chances of reaching blue chip status. And a lot of controversy around this. I didn't really expect it to ruffle that many feathers, but I got 52 likes on there. So that's probably my most liked tweet ever. But Pow Group list of MJ companies to reach blue chip status. I put Tilray, Cureleaf, Green Thumb, High Tide, SNDL, Organigram, and Canopy Growth. So obviously High Tide is not a producer, and they don't have excise taxes. So that's something that they benefit from by not touching the plant or producing the plant, right? So there was some news out today as well with regards to High Tide executing the binding subscription agreement for $50 million in subordinate debt. So just going to the details here real quickly. Most people probably already seen this, but let's just go through the initial tranche. The company said to issue the lender their pro rata share of an aggregate of 230,760 common shares in the capital of the company at deemed price of $3.47 per common share. So that was a little bit lower than the current share price. So the stock was down a little bit, but nothing to be worried about. It was only down like a couple percent, and most MJ was down today. But they did miss in terms of revenue. As I mentioned, we were expecting 127.5, and it came in at, I think it was 124.3. Yeah, 124.3 million rounded up. And then loss per basic share, so EPS came in at 0. So we did beat in terms of EPS. We were forecasting negative 0.0167. So they did beat, and they had a beat and a miss. So this is the first time they missed on their revenue estimate since June 28th of 2021. So let's just look at that revenue growth, right? And June 17th, 2020 was at 19.5 million. And then today we're at 124.3. It was at 128.07 million last quarter, and then 139. So they did see a drop off, and that's kind of why I was expecting a little bit of a miss here in terms of revenue, because it had been all the way since June 28, 2021, and then 2 quarters ago they were at 139. They dropped to 128, and we started to see the trend go the other way. And then also they were forecasting 127.68 million the previous quarter, and then they revised it lower than the previous estimate, even though they beat. So I was in the camp of thinking that we're going to see revenue kind of decline a little bit, but nothing to worry about, in my opinion. Overall, still a great report. And going back to this year, 10.9% market share across 5 provinces, an increase of 9.9% year over year, while only representing 4.8% of the total store count. And then largest retail footprint in Canada, second largest in North America. So our differentiated retail approach has delivered record free cash flow and net income for Q2, a major milestone for High Tide. There were more sign-ups to our elite program in this quarter than any other, and store count continues to grow and will accelerate through 2024. We're doing the things right, and the numbers prove it. Raj Grover, founder, CEO. Absolutely, and it seems like every day they're opening a new store in Ontario. Loyalty, 1.43 million Cabana Club members, 38% year-over-year growth. 44K Elite members reaches a new record, 226% year-over-year. So essentially the Costco of MJ, right? And they do have they've celebrated the private label changes, regulation changes here in Alberta as well. So they do have their Queen of Bud, and then also it's their private label brand as well. The name is escaping me right now. I think it's something like that. I can't remember the name of it right now. But overall, they're doing the discount model, and eventually it's going to pay off, right? We should start to see margins come back and kind of following that Costco, business model, if you will. So we'll jump into this real quickly. Company remains the largest non-franchised retailer of MJ in Canada, the second largest globally by store count with 172 operating locations. Let's just go through. So 9.4 million positive free cash flow. Highest revenue generating MJ company reporting in Canadian dollars, and for the first time has reached 12-month trailing revenue level exceeding 500 million. So yeah, just kind of go back to what I said, right? Is, you have to, I see so much tribalism out there. I love High Tide, don't get me wrong. I'm an investor. I have a big position in High Tide. You have to remember, though, they're not paying an excise tax. So, these producers, it's not really comparing apples to apples. So, in my opinion, having High Tide, having a producer or two in Canada, having a producer or two in the U.S., maybe even an ETF or two, maybe even a REIT, maybe even in like a GRWG who does more retail of home grow and things like that, right, can be a nice addition to a well-balanced portfolio. So, don't get too caught off on the fact that I made that post in that video about High Tide and not being the number one on the list or anything in terms of blue chip, but I think it's going to be definitely one of the long-term winners for sure. The company now exceeds more than 1.43 million members. That's crazy. So we already went through that. So company's market share was 20% in Alberta, 10% in Ontario during the second quarter of 2024. Across 5 provinces where it operates, its market share reached 10.9%, an increase from 9.9%. Annualized retail sales represented over $1,500 per square foot across the Canna Cabana store network, as I mentioned. And this was for the period ended April 30th, 2024. And that would have been with 420 sales as well. So interesting that we did see a drop. Second fiscal quarter 2024 financial highlights. So I went over the 124.3 million in revenue compared to 118.1 million during the same period in 2023. So gross profit of 35.3 million. Gross profit margin in the 3 months ended was 28.4%. So I think Trulieve was like 58%, right? So obviously they're going the value model, right? It's the lowest price guaranteed, so to speak. And if you look at the average, gram in the US, or we'll say ounce, the average ounce is like $300 USD. You can go to Canna Cabana or High Tide store and you can get an ounce for like, $50 USD. Sometimes you can get it for like $50 USD, and it's not bad quality, right? You can get like the bake sale one, or there's some other discount value ones as well, but somewhere around $50 USD, that's like, $70 Canadian. So there's no shortage of them, right? And then you can get a little bit better quality at around, 80 to 100, and then you can get fantastic quad A, think of like a Canara Biotech or something like that for like, 120, 140. So that was the highest level in the past 9 quarters. This compares to 26.7% during the same period in 2023 and 28.1% sequentially. So, at the end of the day, it's going to take some time before these margins start to increase. And just for comparison, like a SNDL, their margins I think were like 26%. So very similar, right? Taking that Value Buds discount model. Adjusted EBITDA increased to 10 million in the second fiscal quarter of 2024 compared to 6.6 million during the same period in 2023, an increase of 52% year over year and negative 4% sequentially. Given the quarter had 2 fewer days. Okay. Adjusted EBITDA margin increased to 8.1%. Go through salaries, wages, and benefits represented 12.4% of the revenue in the second fiscal quarter. All right, we'll run through this a little bit quicker here. Yeah, diluted share was 0 compared to -2 in the same period last year and break even sequentially. Love to see it. Cabana Analytics, business data and insights platform, advertising revenue and other revenue, which includes management fees, interest income, and rental income, was a record 9 million. Wow, that's a decent chunk of change there. For location operational throughout the second quarter, 2024 and 2023, same-store sales increased by 4% year over year. Given the quarter had 2 fewer days, same-store sales were -2% sequentially. Calculated daily. We'll go through cash on hand. Here we go. As of April 30th, 2024, totaled 34.5 million, an all-time record, compared to 22.5 million as of April 30th, 2023, and 28.7 million as of January 31st, 2024, representing an increase of 54% year over year and 20% sequentially. And then, as I mentioned, they're going to be getting that 15 million through the subscription agreement, which was at $3.47 per common share, and that equates to 230,760 common shares. So that will help with their doubling their store count in Ontario. So we went through some of the comments there from Raj. Yeah, smash like if you want to see an interview with Raj Grover. So like I said, I'm going to try my best to get that done. So yeah, company opened 5 new Canna Cabana locations in Ontario. Second time in 3 years, High Tide was recognized as a top 10 ranked company in a diversified industry sector by the TSX Venture 50. So yeah, Queen of Bud, I mentioned that earlier. They acquired all IP, including trademarks and other assets. Go through a little bit quicker here. Various executives of the company participated in the International MJ Business Conference in Berlin, Germany, and the Benzinga Capital Conference in Hollywood, Florida. So let's just see. May 1st to present, company opened an additional 4 Canna Cabana locations in Ontario since April 30th, 2024. Company grew its World Vision sponsorship support to 344 children internationally. That's great to see. Kudos to HITI. And on May 1st, 2024, the company announced the appointment of Mayank Mahajan to the role of CFO. So new Chief Financial Officer. All right. Company sold 1,055,900 common shares to institutional investor through the ATM program for gross proceeds of the amount of $3.2 million. And then they mentioned the subscription agreement for $15 million in debt financing. All right. That's pretty much all I have. We'll jump into the chat here in just a moment. Just want to see if it shows their common shares here. They do have everything over here in the consolidated financial statements. Share issuance cost. See if I can find that. Yeah, 34 million, 34.5 million. All right. If anybody does have any comments or questions, let me know. But like I said, overall, pretty solid report. And like I said, it's only going to get better from here with Ontario doubling the store count. We've got expansion through the rest of Canada as well. Western, Atlantic, and then Germany looking to fast track Pillar 2. It's an exciting time. And then, like I said, the U.S., sky's the limit, really. And to be honest, I don't think they're going to become a producer, but you never know. If they get more cash than they know what to do with, then they very well could. I'm not seeing the outstanding shares here, but let's see if I can, outstanding. There we go. So total consideration, so common shares, 4,932,000. That can't be right. Common shares. There we go. Balance as of, no, that's November 1st. Balance as of April 30th, 2024. 79,364,267 common shares. Let's just check. Make sure that's correct. High tide. Analysis. Let's go. Need a quote. Shares 80.42 million. I see here. Yeah. So close enough. So yeah, updated one as of today. Well, as of the new data that we got today based on April 30th, quarter end 2024, 79.364 million and change. Exact number 79,364,267 shares outstanding. And then they did post the MD&A, so the management discussion and analysis as well. We'll just run through this a little bit. So they did add Queen to Bud, some great brands to say the least, and then go through a lot of already what I mentioned. I don't think there'd be much in here really, and it's quite long. So what are we at here? 19 minutes. I do want to jump into the chat as well, and I want to try to keep the video a little bit shorter today. So performance by segment, brick and mortar, e-commerce. So obviously 92.7% brick and mortar. I'd love to see how many, how much of their sales come from which producer. That'd be a cool exercise. Oh, and there was news today that Indiva filed for creditor protection. So they're behind the No Future gummies, which I buy them at Canna Cabana all the time. And we were talking about it in the Powder private community today, how funny it was and ironic. Their gummies were named No Future, and today they filed for creditor protection. So the irony is real. All right, I'm not seeing anything else worth mentioning at the moment. They go through, common shares, units outstanding, warrants. Yeah, we're almost at the end here. I'll just skim through. Yeah, so this will be available on CDAR. If you want to go check that out, that's where I pulled it from. Yeah, high tide after hours, it was sitting at 256. It's at 258 now, so up about 0.78% after hours. And again, in terms of financials, we were expecting 127.5 million, so they came in 124.3, so a slight miss. EPS negative 0.016. This one says on Moomoo negative 0.015, but USD. So still a beat, nonetheless. But yeah, we're looking good here on the weekly time frame. We had a bull cross of the stochastic and the MACD, and we just need to get back above that 200 weekly. So major resistance coming up at 335. We had a golden cross as well, the first time in multiple years. We're above all of our daily moving averages. Now we just need to battle with that 200 weekly there at 335, and it's all systems go. But yeah, nice strong. We were in a daily uptrend. We did lose the support level there at 244. Actually, let me see, 244. Oh, no, it was a double bottom. 244 and 244. Okay, so nice strong daily uptrend. Weekly time frame. We've got major resistance here at 285 as well. But monthly is the most important chart. So you can see we're in a monthly uptrend. We have our low, high, higher low, and higher high. And we're gearing up for the first ever monthly EMA 12 and 26 bull cross. So yeah, get over 285, and then it's all about 335. And then from there, there's no price action resistance until 589. So it's looking good. Reminds me of my XRP necklace I got on at the moment, 589. All right, we'll jump into the chat here. But yeah, looking at this, it's looking fantastic. Monthly uptrend. We have the first ever monthly EMA 12 and 26 bull cross lining up. And they're getting very close. So this could happen really any month now. And as I've been saying, it's probably going to be a month or two after we had that DEA approval and recommendation of Schedule 3 get approved by the DEA, kicked off the comment period. It was a sell the news type of event. They've been buttering us up for a while, right? It was August. HHS recommended it. And then in April, DEA signed off on Schedule 3. Then they kicked off the official process. And, you know, people, we already expected it, right? It was a known event, and it ended up being a sell the news event. And then what I said is the most likely scenario is we kind of bleed off. And then as you look, what have I been saying? MJ is going to enter a new multi-year bull market, sustained bull market, until we see big tech, AI, and crypto enter a bear market and their bull market. What are we looking at right now in crypto and AI? Everything's just busting. NVDA, 1 for 10 stock split, new all-time highs. Apple, new all-time highs. Now the world's richest company. So yeah, it's we just need that to end, and then I think MJ is going to benefit greatly. And then, you know, we see Florida. I think Florida is going to potentially. I think they will approve adult use, and then MJ banking. We'll see uplisting to the Nasdaq more than likely. Germany fast tracking Pillar 2. We have New Hampshire. We have Ohio coming online. Pennsylvania, lots to be looking forward to, and that's not even counting other states and then other countries that might follow suit. So, like I said, I think we could potentially see a little bit more downside or just sideways action over the next month or so, and then into the end of July, August, we're gonna. Oh, there was some news out today. Not that anybody really cares, but Chuck Schumer says he asks whether Democrats should make MJ a priority ahead of the November elections. I said, duh. I think that's a rhetorical question. So you never know. It's going to be very prominent, in my opinion, in the elections. It's not the most, pressing issue, but it's going to be up there. And, we've seen the other side of the aisle really start to embrace crypto. So maybe we start to see the Dems really start to embrace and focus on MJ. And there was even talks today that Biden might even be accepting crypto for campaign donations and doing a bit of a 180 there. So interesting times to say the least, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of months. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit more downside. There's a lot of bear flags out there across the sector that are saying we could potentially see another leg lower, maybe even a leg or two lower. But in my opinion, I think we're getting close to a temporary bottom. And then into the end of July, when that comment period wraps up, I think there was like 13,000 comments and like 97% of them were positive, right? So it's a done deal, in my opinion. It's either rescheduling or descheduling. But I think the most likely scenario right now is we get rescheduling before the elections. If it doesn't happen, it's a political death sentence to those who were put in power because of that, essentially. And then, toward the end of the year, it's going to be used in the elections, in my opinion, and it's going to be a fantastic end of the year. And then if Florida gets approved, oh man, it's going to be game on at that point. All right, seeing lots of comments. Chamlosi NY, thank you for joining the live stream. We have Mungie Boy tuning in from net income positive land. Yeah, love to see it. Texas, very nice. We have the UK in the house. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Coming in from Virginia. Nice. Welcome, welcome. Jokes aside, Montreal, Canada. Awesome. Haven't been in a long time. I love Montreal. Great city. I heard rent is going through the roof there after it was so low for the longest time. Something similar. I live in Alberta at the moment, so representing high tide, and I think the rent here has been slowly increasing, but yeah, it's gonna be the same thing here. London, UK, very nice. London in the house. Oklahoma, all over the place. Welcome, Andrew. We got Victor, TC 118. HITI Rev down 2%, Nova was down 5%, and SNDL down 21%. Yeah, SNDL said it was attributed to seasonality. So they said it's typical, but I found that a little bit. And then there was something else too. I forget why it was down. Oh yeah, they were getting rid of products, I think, that weren't selling, if I remember correctly. But yeah, great point. David, sup Rod, this is it. Coming at you live. Jamlosi, how low this industry is going to go? It's getting more frustrating. I know that's their plan to frustrate retail. Absolutely, right? And sentiment is at an all-time low. It's in the gutter. It's not just prices that are at all-time lows. It's sentiment. And, this is what happens, right? When you're near the low, it feels like it's like that despair, right? And it's never going to come back. And eventually it does, right? We got New York in the house. Nice, Travis. Sean, something isn't adding up. The highest Canadian MJ revenue. I thought Tilray had the biggest percent market share in Canada. So again, this is where people conflate different things. They're talking about retailer, okay? So this is why I get a little cheese when someone says, they're the best MJ company. Well, we have to define MJ company. And I just did a video on it. Check it out. I'll bring it up here actually real quickly. So if you haven't seen this, I highly encourage you to check it out. I posted it yesterday. I put High Tide versus LPs, licensed producers. You could even say MSOs, like multi-state operators, just producers in Canada, producers in the US. I said, which is better, right? And the moral of the story and the point that I was trying to get across was the fact that, both are amazing. Both are, obviously the producers have lost a lot of money, but they pay a lot of excise taxes, right? You look at Organogram, look at Oxy, look at Tilray, look at all these major producers. 1/3 of their revenue is going towards excise tax. If you look at, High Tide, right? If we bring up, let me just bring it up real quick here. If we bring up the interim and consolidated financial statements and we search excise, there ain't none, right? So the excise tax only is applied to producers, right? So they don't have to pay, that massive chunk of tax, right? They pay regular taxes, but they don't have to pay those excise taxes, which is similar to tobacco and alcohol, right? So when you're comparing, and I seen a ton of people after I made that video, a ton of people were comparing High Tide. I'm not trying to knock High Tide. It's smart on their part to get into the retail part of it, but we have to remember, there's going to be winners and losers in retail. Look at Fire and Flower, right? Went under. You look at didn't succeed, right? Just because you're in retail doesn't mean everybody wins, right? SNDL is a vertical producer. They're vertically integrated, so they have seed to sale, right? They have B2C, they have B2B. So they have their partnership with Nova MJ and Value Buds, right? They also have Superette and all that stuff, but they have tons of retail locations, but they also touch the plant. They also produce the plant as well. So SNDL is in retail, MJ retail and alcohol retail, and they also produce. So they pay excise taxes, but that's on what they produce, right? So, there's very differentiated businesses. I think, we don't need to be tribal of any one company while we can, own High Tide, and I do, and I love High Tide just like most of you. But, we have to say, like, at the end of the day, High Tide is selling producers' products, right? So what does High Tide need to be successful? producers, right? Unless they're just going to stop selling MJ and only sell like bongs and paraphernalia, right? But that's more like a Canopy in a stores in Bickle, right? But they own that manufacturing company and they manufacture. Like High Tide doesn't. Maybe they manufacture some bongs or something like that, but I don't think they have like any major operations for manufacturing. But when it comes to High Tide, they rely on these producers. And Tilray's probably Canna Cabana's main. When I walk into a Canna Cabana, it's Tilray products everywhere. You look at the fridge, it's all Tilray products, trust, right? And then it goes to show you like they both rely on each other. They both work hand in hand. So for me to say, it's just, I can't be tribalistic of any one company. Like I got to drop that cult mentality. I see it all the time in crypto, and it just drives me bonkers, right? You can own more than one MJ company. You can own more than one MJ retailer or producer or, Canadian company or, US company, right? So yeah, you have to really differentiate and define MJ company. When it says highest revenue, it said highest retailer in Canada in terms of revenue and second highest in North America in terms of retailer, right? So it's not producer, okay? So you got to get that across that point across. And then in terms of percentage market share, again, that has nothing to do with Tilray or anything like that, right? That's producer versus retailer. They're two completely different things. And if you recall, Hexo, who Tilray acquired, Hexo said it's the wrong move to get into retail and be a producer. He said it's either retail or producer, no in between. And Canopy even went the route of doing Tokyo Smoke and doing both. And then actually Value Buds had a big issue with Canopy because they were opening stores, Tokyo Smokes, near their stores, and they boycotted them. And I went in there and they were just like, nope, we don't sell Canopy products anymore. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, we're selling them to employees for like 20% of the original cost. I'm like, wow. So, they screwed themselves over. And then eventually Canopy shut down all their retail locations, right? So in my opinion, I think it was right. It's either retail or producer. And in my opinion, having both in a portfolio is a nice way to do it in a well-balanced portfolio. And again, we see producers dropping like flies. Ogen went under. We saw T-God, right? And then BZAM and Indiva just declared creditor protection today, and there's a ton of other ones, right? Zenobus and a ton of others. But at the end of the day, producers will come and go, but the ones that weather the storm and make it out of this, in my opinion, like a Tilray and a High Tide, they rely a lot on each other, right? So yeah, Tilray has the most market share in terms of producers, but in terms of retailers, way different story. So Travis says Tilray, not sure what you mean by that, but yep. High Tide has higher ASPs. I'm not sure what ASPs are. What's ASP? I'm not familiar with that acronym. Average selling price? Is that what it is? Yeah, maybe let me know let me know about that. Most producers will be dead by then, Rob. Well, if that's the case, then High Tide better become a producer because it won't have any products to sell, right? So that doesn't really make any sense to me. Black market back in Canada, eh? Well, at the end of the day, lowering excise taxes will help combat the illicit market as well. And that's what happened with tobacco is they lowered the excise tax and then they started to raise it over time, right? So that they could get rid of the contraband ones, right? In the illicit market. So I think it's going to happen at some point soon. But yeah. Travis says Tilray is all you need. Maybe in terms of producer, but again, we're not really comparing apples to apples here if you're talking about High Tide because, High Tide is selling Tilray products. So we want, in theory, Tilray should want High Tide to succeed and High Tide should want Tilray to succeed because they're not direct competitors. They're they're friends. They're working together. They're helping each other out, right? Agreed, but every 10K shares owned should confer one free night at one of Simon's hotels. Yeah. Well, that was a free thing, right? But yeah, definitely weird. But I don't understand that argument. It's Rod, by the way, not Rob. This is an advantage not paying an excise tax. It's positioning them better than the producers. Yeah, if you don't get it, I probably can't convince you. What's the closest thing to MJ that we can compare? Alcohol, right? Forget Costco. I see this all the time. Costco isn't selling Schedule 1 drugs. They're not selling drugs. You can go to Costco and buy anything you want, right? They sell liquor too, but they don't sell MJ. But at the end of the day, they're selling products that they can put any product in there they want, right? But MJ, if you want to buy MJ, you have to go to a specific dispensary, an MJ store, right? So, you got to compare it to alcohol. If you want to buy alcohol, yes, there's like Quebec and some places in, the US and Walgreens where you can go to a store and like a grocery chain and buy it there. But in Canada, most places you have to go to a liquor store. You can't go to a place and buy liquor, right? Like a grocery store, unless it's Quebec or whatever, right? Everywhere else, you have to go to a store, a liquor store. So what can we compare MJ to? The closest thing we have is tobacco and alcohol being the closest. So who makes the most money selling in the alcohol industry? Who makes the most? Is it the producers or the retailers, right? It's the producers. Anheuser-Busch, right? $50 billion market cap, right? Look at Constellation Brands, $50 billion market cap or something like that. So, like, when it comes to retail alcohol, is there even any names that come to mind? Like, other than like Ace Liquor Depot that SNDL owns? Like, I can't really think of any. Like, maybe like a Costco or something like that. But, at the end of the day, they have to have their own separate store, right? And, in PEI or in certain jurisdictions, only the government can sell alcohol, right? It's controlled by the government. Same thing with MJ and PEI. You go to PEI or Quebec, you can only buy it through the SQDC or, PEI MJ. So, and here in Alberta, it's privatized. I'm not saying that not paying excise taxes isn't a good thing. I'm just saying you're comparing apples to oranges. You're not if you want to compare High Tide to someone, well, then you would have compared them to like a Fire and Flower, right? You would have compared them to like you can't even really say value beds because they got their hand in SNDL has their hand in alcohol retail and they produce it as well. So again, there's not really, you'd have to compare it to maybe a private retailer or something like that, right? But the closest thing we had was Fire and Flower, and they're no more. So it's not saying which one is better. You're not really comparing accurately, in my opinion, and it's actually kind of silly to compare Tilray to High Tide. It doesn't even really make any sense, right? But they both need each other. So I don't understand. It literally doesn't make any sense to me why people say, Tilray over High Tide. They sell the most Tilray products, and if not for them, like if there was no producers, what would they sell? Like that argument alone should be enough to tell people to end the tribalism and stop comparing High Tide to producers. I don't get it. I am very long-term in this undervalued company. Yeah, absolutely, Robert. I do think it's still undervalued. And long-term, I'm super bullish. You get what you pay for. What about Dan, the chart man? Does he like High Tide? You'd have to ask Dan that. I have no idea. I know he likes charts. I don't know. Appreciate the breakdown of earnings. You bet. My pleasure. What is the logical 12-month target price? I would say, pulling a number out of my hat, I'd probably say $5 to $10. 80 million shares, 1/10 of Tilray. Yeah. But again, you're comparing producers and retailers. One pays, $30 to $40 million in, well, no, I can't remember how much it paid in excise taxes. I think Tilray paid like $50 million in excise taxes. So, like, you can't really compare that, right? They also have a $2 billion market cap, and High Tide has a market cap of like $270 million, right? So $2 billion plus $270 million, or compared to $270 million, you're not comparing apples to apples. Once again, it's ROD, R-O-D as in Rodney, not Rob as in Robert. But yeah, you like Tilray that lost $100 million last quarter better than High Tide. It's like talking to a wall at this point. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna stop talking about this. Long term, just came on here to say that High Tide is way better than investment opportunity than Tilray. So basically, yeah, again, you're not comparing apples to oranges, and if it's so stupid. You do realize that your precious High Tide is selling the most Tilray products and making a profit off of it. Oh, these people. Agree to disagree with that statement? I guess so. What's the other support to watch for after 244? Yeah, we can take a look. 244. So I would go on the weekly time frame, and next support would be 211 and then 192. But yeah, most nearby after that would be 211. Please tell me how cash burning Tilray is better than a scalable business model than High Tide. Is anybody else getting like frustrated? Because like it's literally like talking to a wall here. High Tide sells Tilray products. I don't get it. They both work. They're not even a competitor of each other. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand your argument. Tilray is a producer. High Tide is a retailer. They're two very different businesses. That's like comparing Best Buy to Apple. Like, oh, Apple's way better than Best Buy. Well, duh, they produce it. Like, it's just silly. Come on, people. It's time to wake up here. They're both great companies. Like, I don't know what else you want me to say. Tilray is vertically integrated. Exactly. They own beverage brands. They have alcohol business. They have diversification. They have the number one MJ company. They're number one in Canada. They're the number one in Germany. They're the number one probably producer products sold in High Tide. Like, this doesn't make any sense, folks. Like, we need to drop off. We need to like leave the ego and jump like your emotions out of it and use logic and reason and data. Like, you're not using like logical sense here. You're just trying to be tribal for the sake of being tribal, and it's almost like a cult. And like that's the reason why this industry has a bad rep. And same thing with crypto. So many people are cult like it's a Bitcoin or bust. It's a Bitcoin or not. Everything else is a fuck scam. You know, it's like, man, like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. I don't see anybody tribal to any one of them, right? Like, there's gonna be multiple winners. Like, I just don't get it. Tilray is losing. Like, if you care so much about Tilray, just don't invest into them. I don't get it. Like, why do you keep talking about Tilray? You're on a High Tide stream. Why aren't you talking about High Tide? They must be doing something right if that's all you can talk about the whole stream, right? Schumer has just been full of talk for years. Yeah, he's arguably the second most powerful Democrat in the country, but just can't get anything done. But I think it's by design. I care. Long-term competitive advantage can't get squeezed by suppliers. Rent is crazy here. Yeah, it's been exploding, right? Sounds like retail is getting the better business. Sounds like retail is the better business then. Yeah, well, you have to remember, like, excise taxes, right? There's huge excise tax burden. 1/3 of these LPs, if they weren't paying 1/3 of their revenue toward excise tax, what would their bottom line look like? Right? What would their profitability metrics look like? If 280E goes away in the US, what are some of these companies in the US going to look like? These producers are going to just shine, right? And I think that somewhere around the same time where 280E goes away in the US, we'll see an improvement to excise taxes here in Canada. And then maybe they'll start to increase it over time like they did with tobacco, right? But, you know, the Budweisers weren't born overnight. They didn't come in the first 5 years after alcohol prohibition ended, right? It came multiple decades later, right? We're still super early. The U.S. is still federally illegal at the federal level, right? And High Tide can expand to the U.S. Tilray's looking to expand to the U.S. They've just raised $250 million. Same with Canopy. They're becoming an MSO through the acquisition of acreage. Like, I just don't get it. Like, people are so like in their own little bubble and can't face reality. Like, there's going to be winners and losers. There's winners and losers and retailers. Look at Fire and Flower. It's no more. Look at High Tide. It's never been stronger. There's there's going to be winners and losers in the producers in Canada and the US, right? And international markets as well. So in my opinion, retail it's not that it's a better business. There's better businesses in retail than other retail businesses, right? But you're not comparing apples to apples. In my opinion, and to own them both is the way to go. I'm not telling you what to do. Buy, sell, or hold. This isn't financial advice, but I own High Tide. I own Tilray. I own Curaleaf, right? Those are my top 3 picks, basically, in the MJ industry, right? So why would you want to invest in a producer? That argument is so weird, bro. Again, man, I don't get it. Like, what? I don't know what else to say. Like High Tide sells producers' products. When you look at alcohol, which is the closest comparison to MJ, it's not the retailers that make the most money. It's the producers. It's the Anheuser-Busch's. It's the Constellation Brands, the Coors, the Molson Coors of the world. So who do you want? Tilray was partnered with Molson Coors for a while. Right now, they bought 100% of that MJ business because they're focused on MJ. Coors said they might get back into it eventually, right? Jones Soda is getting into MJ. You know? So at the end of the day, you can pick more than one. And like I said, there's going to be winners and losers all over the place. So can you pick up the guitar and play Stairway to Heaven for SIDL, Tilray, and CG? I love it. Yeah. It's a pretty sick guitar, though. It's a Jackson. It's pretty freaking sweet. Got it like a year ago or so. I haven't played it in a while. I'll have to bust out the new strings and give her a whirl. The point is, why would I invest in retail than producers? The point is, why would I rather invest in retail than producers? Again, why can't you invest in both? Why does it have to be one or the other? Why do we have to be diehard of one or the other? It doesn't make any sense to me. They're selling producers' products, and producers are relying on retailers to sell their products. So why not own both? Like, I don't get, like, anyway, I'm not gonna go on any more about that because I've already said what I wanted to say, and if it's not resonating with anyone, then everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If you don't agree with me, then that's fine. We can still be friends. We don't have to agree on everything, right? Time will tell, and we'll see who's right in the end. That's why I chose High Tide over Tilray and Canopy Growth. Well, yeah, congrats. I mean, but to that logic, High Tide was still down 93% at the same time Tilray was down 97%. So 97% down from February 2021 highs, or 93% down, 93, 97%. Doesn't matter about fundamentals. These companies don't trade on fundamentals, right? They trade on the sector moving in one direction. When everything's going up, everything's going up. When everything's going down, everything's going down. Yes, they don't follow down to the exact day, second, the minute, but if you zoom out to the monthly chart, zoom out to the yearly chart, I would argue mostly the yearly chart, because there was that time where US MJ was just on an absolute tear, and then MJ came later, or Canadian MJ came later. But then once Canadian MJ started to fall, everybody's like, see, the licensed producers are garbage, and it's just the US companies that are worth owning. And I said, I watch your mouth, careful what you wish for. And then sure enough, GTII dropped like 70, 80%. We had Trulieve drop over 90%, right? And they were humbled, right? Mr. Market humbles all. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how good your fundamentals are. They still drop 70, 80, 90%. So if you're in High Tide and it dropped 93% and you're in Tilray and it dropped 97%, that both sucks, right? So you can't just look at the share price or only at fundamentals. You have to look at the macro, right? What's going on in the whole sector, because the sector moves together in tandem. Same thing with any nascent industry. There is hundreds of LPs, pal. Actually, there's thousands, but they're dwindling. And yes, if you look at Tilray, right, it is now Tilray, Aphria, Hexo, Redican, Zenabis. They acquired all the top companies. Like Tilray acquired all the best LPs in Canada. There's no more left. You could argue maybe Canopy is a good one now that but they're kind of becoming an MSO with Acreage and Jetty and Wana. But in my opinion, look at Canopy market share. It's been dropping in Canada. Tilray's number one in Canada, number one in Germany, and they have all the best producers, right? It's a behemoth. And yes, the companies that have multiple billions of dollars in market cap and multiple assets and brands and companies, and they're going to be the ones that weather the storm. So the ones that end up long term and weather the storm are going to be the ones that benefit the most. Yes, you can own more than one MJ company, but I still like well-run companies. Well, again, I don't think people actually do research. Like, did you know that Apple Computers in 1997 almost went bankrupt, right? Like, they weren't this alone should tell you everything you need to know. They didn't sell Schedule 1 illegal drugs on the same list as heroin, where some countries offer the death penalty for simple possession, okay? They're selling computers and almost went bankrupt. Microsoft invested $150 million into Apple in 1997, saved them out of bankruptcy, and then Apple is now worth more than Microsoft. So You could have said, "Oh, I don't invest in Apple. It's not a well-run company." Well, you would have been right. It almost went bankrupt. Guess what? Amazon almost went bankrupt. So did Tesla. So did Apple. Right. So that's not like, you can't say that just because they're not run well today. The U.S. hasn't even legalized it yet. They can't even sell into the U.S. with their THC and their MJ products. Right. Germany's coming online. Finally, Pillar 2 should be coming online soon in the next year or so for Pillar 2 for profit. Right. Like, there's so much growth ahead, it's not even funny. So, you can't just look at like the first 2 years of an industry when the U.S. isn't even legal yet, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like, how long did it take these big tech companies to get established and blue chip and see these massive returns and, hundreds of billions and $1 trillion valuations? It took decades, and they weren't selling Schedule 1 illegal drugs. Like, it's going to take some time. But, through AI and everything like that, that's going to help the cultivation process. These producers, they're going to be able to make a lot more decisions and improvements, innovative improvements, things like that. And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. It's the highest revenue among companies reporting in Canadian dollars. Yeah. Retailers. Nobody is saying you can't own more than one company, but if you are saying a company losing 100 million per Q versus one profitable, there's a major issue. Well, again, they're not. High Tide isn't like. I really don't understand how you don't understand this. Like, when you start a High Tide, when High Tide starts a business, retail is not that hard to make money at, right? It's hard to scale. It's a little easier to scale because you don't have to, like, think about it. When you're a producer, you have to get a license, which costs like $1 million. You have to get a facility. You have to get cameras. You have to get fencing all the way around. You have to hire employees. You have to hire the IP and the research and development and the testing, the quality, the cultivation. You have to harvest that. You have to package it, distribute it, get it out, market, advertise, well, as much as we can here in Canada. And you don't see a single dollar until, how long does it take for them to grow a plant and harvest it and package and distribute it and get the license and everything? So you're looking at a year, 2 years before you even see $1 in revenue, right? Whereas High Tide can start, like, anybody can start a retail company and make money on day one, right? Like, you're not comparing them accurately. And again, if at this point, if I can't get the point across, you're probably just not going to understand it. If you just list the pros and cons of each company, Tilray would have more pros than most. Yep. Again, we're trying to keep it a little bit focused here on High Tide, though. Not really. Tilray burns an absurd amount of cash and constantly dilutes. I would not agree with that. Canopy's burn way more, and now everybody thinks Canopy's the one to own. It's like, oh, they're going to become an MSO and acquire acreage. It's like, this hasn't been new information. This has been known for multiple years, but people just, whatever the flavor of the week is. Doesn't sound like a good company to invest in. Average selling price, yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, average selling price, no, can't say anything bad about that. Yeah, and I say that's true. But again, High Tide's just a little bit more stable than most, and it doesn't have as many of. I mean, it definitely has its challenges, but just different challenges compared to like producers. Isn't Tilray the only one that has not had to do a reverse split? That would be correct, Strone. Yes. And the U.S. companies haven't done reverse splits because they're not on U.S. major exchanges. So once the U.S. companies uplist to U.S. major exchanges, guess what? The darling, Trulieve, went from like what, $60 a share down to like $2. It went to 2. TCNNF. Yeah, it went from the high of February 2021, an all-time high. It went from U.S. It went from, I was thinking Canadian, 53.73 down to 342. So it actually wasn't too far away from, if it was on the U.S. major exchanges, it wasn't actually that far away from potentially being around that $1 mark, right? And, there's a lot of, the U.S. companies are going to face a lot of the same issues once they uplist to the U.S. major exchanges. Reverse splits will be a thing there too. If High Tide didn't have a higher ASP, that would be a problematic since Tilray sells to High Tide, who then sells it. Yeah, and like, again, once would be a problem since Tilray sells to High Tide, who can then resell it. Yeah, and we're seeing the costs per gram go down, and again, once we start to see excise tax improvement, I think that'll be a big one. Then that will only help drive more sales and lower the prices as well, because then Tilray will be able to make more margin and pay less in taxes, and then that'll ultimately help the consumer as well, and help bring them over from the illicit market, which has already been really working, right, since the price compression and price wars. Who loses the most money in LP versus retailers? That was never an argument that I made. Specs in the U.S. or Total Wine? Specs in the U.S. or Total Wine? Not sure what you mean by that. Biggest retailers in the U.S. for alcohol. Oh, Specs is the name of it? Okay. Interesting. See, that's constructive to the conversation. Thank you, Jamlosi. Spec. Okay. Let's just look at the profile. So Spectaire Holdings. No, that's not the one. Specs Wine. Okay, yes. So Specs. Are they a public company though? Specs. Maybe they're Texas-owned liquor store chain, Midtown Houston. So, are they public or private? Let's see. It's a private company, so we probably don't get anything about their financials. How much do they make? Still, if you're a cashier, you make approximately $11 an hour. Nope, that's not what I meant. Yeah, it's a private company, so they probably... It says their estimated annual revenue is only $15 million per year. Is that an old article or something? Yeah, it doesn't give me a date on it, but yeah, that's not a lot. Yeah, but yeah, hearing if you look at SNDL, majority of the revenues now is coming from retail, from alcohol, right? Because they acquired Alcanna. But they're definitely, like, if retail was so great in alcohol, then why did Alcanna sell their business, right? Thank you for the regular updates on the sector. Appreciate the work. You're welcome, Sammy. So weird. The financials are much better. We can objectively decide which company is performing better than the other one. It's numbers. Yeah, well, again, I don't disagree with that. But again, if you're going to compare a retailer, I would compare it to another retailer. I wouldn't necessarily compare it to a producer. It's kind of silly in my opinion. Tilray is not making any profit selling that products. High Tide is. Well, again, Tilray is in Germany. Tilray is in the United States. Tilray is buying... They're all over Canada, right? High Tide, I don't think, has any operations in Atlantic Canada. Tilray's all over Canada, all over Germany. It operates in 22 plus countries and 5 continents. High Tide's in one. Like, I don't get the argument. Interesting comment, but Apple has performed way better than Best Buy. Well, that wasn't my point either. That's the exact opposite of my point. My point is you want to be the producers. I wasn't saying Best Buy was the one that's better. I was saying the producers, right? It's usually the producers. People are tribal to Amazon, Apple, and Google. I haven't seen any. Most people don't even invest in them because they got priced out, right? It's too expensive. We missed the boat, so to speak. Even Warren Buffett missed the boat on them, right? So, I mean, he invested in Apple later on, but he could have made a lot more money if he just... was open-minded. So again, if you're not open-minded to these producers, right, you're just basically a stubborn old man or woman. Like, come on, like, there's gonna be winners and losers. Like, I don't like. There has to be, or else who are these retailers? What products are they going to sell? They're going to sell all. There's just going to be a new producer come up every week, and they're just going to restock their shelves with new producers. They're going to go insolvent, bankrupt, and they're just going to keep getting new producers every week. That doesn't make any sense. You literally just made a video about which one is better. What are you on? So did you read the thumbnail and the title and think you knew everything about the video? Because it sounds like that's what you did. If you watch the whole video, the point of the video was that it's dumb to say that. To even think comparing retailers to producers is dumb. That's like negative IQ type stuff. It doesn't even make sense. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, if you're not getting it by this point, man, like, come on. It's time to wake up here. Like, if you don't get it, the point of the video, if you remember, if you actually watched it, not the thumbnail or the title, was I'm invested in both, and it's comparing apples to oranges. You're not comparing apples to apples. It doesn't even make sense. It's silly. That's what I said. And I own both. It makes sense to own everything, right? Producers and retailers, because they work hand in hand. Like, you lost the whole plot. You lost the whole point of the thing, man. Like, yo, Rod, the MJ guy. Never heard that before. That's funny. I like the Buster Rhymes on that one. Just invest in retailers instead of producers if you think that, and drop the BS already. Yeah, exactly. Like, no one's here telling you, no one here is saying only own Tilray. Like, you guys and girls are the only ones. If you're a girl, I don't know. Most of the people on my channel is 97% people watch my video are dudes. But yeah, like, no one on here is saying only invest in Tilray. Actually, I think there was one person, so my bad. But, you know, like, I don't say only invest in Tilray. Like, I'd be a child at that point. Like, we're all adults here. Like, there's going to be winners and losers. And if you don't think that, I would question, like, your success long-term in this industry. Because if you only think that there's only going to be, like, you got a lot of work ahead of you. You got to do a lot of research. Right, Rod? So the high excise taxes on the producers are temporarily bringing their margins down to the level of the retailers, not sustainable. Yeah, but that's not going to last that way forever. And then eventually the U.S. will open up, the rest of the world, Germany, right? You got to remember, like, this is Schedule 1 drug in the U.S., right? There's so much. Like, what if we get research, which we already pretty much know? What if we get confirmed research and everything that MJ cures cancer? What if it becomes known, right? It's going to explode. And then what if, you know, with the use of AI and all these different, like, you know, different data points that we can see, like how MJ affects people differently and different strains affect people. It's already said that there was a study out that terpenes are more effective than opioid for treating pain. So once the cat is out of the hat and once the genie's out of the bottle and you know, the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in. Once people know that this is the medicine of the future, then, you know, like, the sky's the limit with this friggin' thing. Like, so many people are just fixated on the here and now. Like, we're in the first inning. Like, it's not even, we haven't even started the ball game essentially yet, right? We're in the warm-ups. Like, and people are so emotional and, like, freaking out and, like, it's like, oh my God, it's been 5 years here and, like, I'm not rich yet, or, like, we're not at, you know, $1 trillion valuations. Like, man, how long did it take these big tech companies to do it? And they weren't selling Schedule 1 illegal drugs, some countries offering death penalty for simple possession. Can you comment on Red, White, and Bloom? No, I cannot. Sorry, Victor. I really don't follow them. I think they're in, like, the Midwest or something like that in the U.S. But yeah, I'm not a big. They're not really on my radar. If you look at McDonald's versus producers, who makes the most money? Rodert. I don't get it. McDonald's produces stuff too. And why are we comparing McDonald's to cannabis producers? Why aren't we comparing cannabis producers to alcohol producers? That's the closest thing we have. Who is Roderts? Yeah, a mix between Robert and Rod. Yeah, since you can't spell, we'll give it to you. I made it up, but didn't put an S. Yeah, okay. Y'all are just trolls here today. Yeah. Well, I will say one thing. I was very excited to do the stream, but people like this end up making High Tide a bad name, to be honest. You guys all should be ashamed of yourself at the end of the day. And if there's any more comments that are going on here with ridiculous stupidity, I'm just going to ban you from the channel and you'll never be able to comment again, because I try to put up with the stupidity, but sometimes the stupidity just outshines everything. And it's just like, sometimes I think people just try to be stupid. Like, they're not actually this dumb. Like, they're just trying to get a ruse out of people, right? Like, there's no way people can be this dumb, right? It's just all trolls. Rod is emotional. We're trying to measure investment thesis, financials, etc. Okay. Thanks for telling me I'm emotional on my own channel. We'll be banning you and you won't be coming back. All the best. Just give me a sec, guys. Sorry, not very often we deal with trolls. I guess it's because it's a High Tide video and we got a bunch of cult-like people on here and tribal. Not too many other videos I have to deal with this, but I guess we're dealing with a bunch of immature people. So we'll have to go and ban some people here. I don't think I banned anybody in probably months at this point. So congrats. You are officially the most immature person that I've encountered in months. So where are we at here? All right. So we'll never have to message or deal with that nonsense ever again. But wish you all the best. He didn't get on here to compare. This is a High Tide live stream and y'all started Tilray. Yeah, like, right? It's like, if you love High Tide so much, why can't you stop talking about all these other companies? It's like, so dumb. What probably happened is they probably bought CGC and Tilray at the top, lost a bunch of money like a bunch of degens, and then they buy High Tide and think it's the best company ever. I don't get it. If you simply don't agree, then what are you still watching and trolling? I agree. Like, just shut up and move on. Like, talk about the positive. Come on here, talk about what you liked about High Tide's earnings. Talk about the positives. Talk about the relevant things. Like, life is short. Why do you got to go on? Like, you got nothing better to do? It's sad. Like, come on. What's a good price to start buying High Tide? Okay, we're getting back into reality here. I would say, anywhere around these levels is a fantastic bargain, right? Like, if we go from, if we just take a quick peek at the chart, I'm not going to bring it up here right now because I'm trying to end the stream, but, and the Edmonton Oilers games played tonight, and they're down 2-0, man. They better win tonight. I'd be pissed. High Tide, it's still down 80% from the all-time high. So, I mean, it was down from February 2021 and all-time highs to the low of March of last year. It was down almost 93%, right? So, down 93, down 80 from all-time highs. I mean, it's pretty much a solid entry here, but, maybe you want to get it on a daily oversold, which would probably bring us down to around $2, but, I can't really tell you to buy, sell, or hold, but I've been buying. My average is somewhere around probably like 225, I think it is, USD. So, we're not that much higher than that from now. And, I think High Tide will easily be at, probably, well, who knows when, but it could be 5-10 years from now. But I think this company will easily be at $25 to $50 a share. Anything under $3 is a great deal for High Tide. Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been watching these videos for 3 years, and he has been right 95% of the time. Rodney understands the industry better than most. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Jamlosi. Like, I definitely haven't been, like you said, 95% of the, like, I've never pumped a company. I've never said buy this company and they went bankrupt, right? I never said buy Fire and Flower. I never said buy, that I'm buying any of these companies. Well, I never tell you to buy or sell anything, but, most of the companies that I talk about are still around. And if they're not around directly, they're indirectly. Like, look at Tilray, Afria, Hexo, Redican, all of the companies that I was following are now under one umbrella that are just king. And now they're working, with High Tide, and they're both awesome in my opinion. And, like I put in hundreds and hundreds of hours. Like, I put in thousands of hours of research and studying and just covering the space. And I tried my best to come on here and be the most genuine and, the highest integrity. So, I just want to, comment gets a heart. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You also look back at his video after rescheduling and uplisting, and also after a couple of years. This is a long-term industry to look at, not tomorrow gains. Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. High Tide is on track to go global. Yeah, definitely. If you don't have haters, you ain't popping. Yeah, I don't mind haters. I really don't like whenever people are tribalistic for no reason. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, literally, if you talk to any investor, right, anybody with half a brain or that has done anything in the investing world, what do they tell you? Diversification. So if you come on here and you're tribal to one company, like, that just tells me you're a degen and you're probably like, you probably don't know very much about the finance world. And why in the world, like, look at the dot-com days, in the dot-com bubble, right? All the companies that, like pets.com, all the companies that started, right? Those weren't the ones that made it. It was the one, they came multiple years later, and then it was decades after, right? So, just because we're 5 years into this MJ thing doesn't mean that the companies that were here on day one are going to be the ones who make it, right? Where's CanTrust at these days, right? So, yeah, we're starting to see the maturation of the industry, and we're starting to finally get an idea of who the winners and losers are going to be long term. And a lot of companies are dropping like flies, and we've got, companies that are starting to be really differentiated. If you look in Canada, if you go down the list of Canada companies in MJ, they're very differentiated now, right? Your SNDL, retail alcohol, retail MJ, it's also a producer. It's also in the value segment. You look at High Tide, it only does retail, right? You look at Organigram, 100% MJ. You look at Tilray, it manufactures alcohol as well. It's MJ, it's a distribution business, a hemp business, health and wellness, right? It's a branding company. And multiple partnerships with the Broncos and things like that. So, and then, look at GTII, Green Thumb. They're looking to try to acquire Boston Beer Company, right? So the Sam Adams. So they're trying to be like a Tilray. Look at Cureleaf, big prominent footprint in international in Germany. Kind of sounds like Tilray. So why is everybody trying to be like Tilray, right? It's because they're starting to differentiate themselves, and we have the blueprint, and then even Canopy, right? Canopy's becoming an MSO. They've got their stores in Bickle, the ancillary type of businesses, right? So they're all very, very different when you like pull back the layers of it and look under the hood. Before, like if you remember first year, second year in Canada, all the companies sounded the same. They were all doing the same. They wanted to be the biggest, the baddest, the fastest, right? So, now if you look at the U.S. companies, they're all very similar. Like the U.S. companies, I would say the only company in the U.S. that's super differentiated would be Cureleaf. That's the only one that and maybe Trulieve, because it has such a big medical presence in Florida and it's just dominating Florida. But, beyond that, like a lot of the companies in the U.S. are very, very similar. And they're going to have a lot of the same issues that we had here in Canada, maybe even worse, because there's over 1,000 LPs. Imagine what there'll be in the U.S. in 5-10 years after legalization and after 280E goes away, right? Once that barrier of entry is no longer there. There's going to be a lot of competition in the U.S., and all these international companies are going to come sell to the U.S. Don't for a second think that you're not going to have Canadian companies selling in the U.S. I don't care who tells you. That is bullshit, right? Excuse my French, but Canopy's already working on acreage, right? So it's already happening. Cureleaf owns Northern Green Canada. That's happening. Partnership with Sanity Group in Germany. Very scalable business model. Long 114,500 shares. Wow. We got a whale in the house. 231 USD per share. Nice. Can't go wrong with that. Rod, thanks for not being afraid to hammer on the trolls. Yeah. No, I try to be respectful, and I try to... Yeah. There's a reason why I turned on manual review of all comments on my channels, just because, I can't stand it. And to be honest, the quality of the comments are pretty awesome. I'd say like 95% of the comments are very thoughtful, and, doesn't mean I get a lot of comments on the channel where people don't agree with me or they think that I'm wrong, but they say a comment in a way that's not disrespectful or rude. And I still post it, right? Just because I don't agree with them or they don't agree with me doesn't think I'm not going to put it on my comment or not approve the comment. It's just, if someone comes on and says, you're wrong, you're an idiot, blah, 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 I don't even look at their reasoning. And most of the times they don't even provide reasoning. People are just like, no, you're wrong. The end. You're an idiot. You're wrong. Like one guy commented the other day, was like, what do you say? This is the reason why I get frustrated with the MJ industry. #clueless. That's what he commented on my video. And I'm like, okay, so why am I clueless? What exactly did it, like, what are you referring to? Why do you think I'm clueless? And how are you the most knowledgeable? What did I get wrong? How about you tell me, enlighten me, right? But they can't. They can't even put a sentence together. So notice that Q2 high tide PDF brick and mortar sales were 115 million CAD and level of 115 million.6 million CAD in Q1. That's despite 5% reduction in Canada retail sales. Yeah, I didn't notice that, but thanks for sharing that, Adnan. 10.9% market share, while store count is only about 5% of the total MJ retail store count. That's impact. Yeah, and like, you know, they're opening up stores in Ontario, seems like every other week. So exciting times ahead. All right, sorry that it took a little bit longer today and we had to deal with some trolls. It is what it is. Can't take it back now, so we powered through it. You knock me down, get back up again, and yeah, we roll with the punches on this channel. So, all right, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Love each and every one of you who are very respectful and not just on here trolling, and support me along the way. And again, we don't have to agree on everything. We can agree to disagree. We can agree. We can disagree. Whatever it is, as long as we're all adults, you know, we can all still be friends. And you know, it's all about just trying to get to the most logical, get to the truth, really, and get the most logical explanation. So rescheduling 2024, I think so. Thank you for your time. Keep up the great work. Thanks, JMOC. I appreciate it. You're on the stream pretty much every time I go live, so I appreciate the support. Definitely doesn't go unnoticed. All right, enjoy the rest of your evening. Go Oilers, go. Hopefully we can win one, at least one. We scored one goal at least last game, so that was great to see. But let's get back into the win column. All right, have a great night. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rod with Power Group, and we'll see you again on the next video.